Welcome back to Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings, episode 30 now. I'm your co-host, Chris. I'm the philosophy professor and the Steelers fan here.
And I'm your other co host, Ajay, and I am the psychiatrist and Chiefs fan here. Thank you to everyone that's been following along. We have had a lot of recent engagement, actually. I should mention we just today crossed 250 subscribers on YouTube.
Oh,
So that's for
big.
us a milestone. And it's
Scary.
something crazy. I think I should check the. Good thing I don't have this ready for the podcast, but
All right, I'll
we've
take a
had,
sip out of my Steelers mug to buy time here.
I believe, in the last 2 days, so yesterday and the day before combined, we've added 34 subscribers. So it's been a good couple of days. Thank you for all of you that are tuning in and paying attention. There's been a lot of engagement. So we are here on the YouTube channel. We have the audio version of the podcast available on whatever apps you download podcasts. And we are on social media at STCF715 on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, which is my cue for the comment of the week. And we have a lot of options for comment of the week. There were some really good ones, but the one that I ended up choosing is from the film review I did of the Chiefs Raiders. It is, let me pull up this comment. The comment is from at Cash Out Season, season spelled SZN. At Cash Out Season on the Steelers Raiders film review wrote, "Good video, but are we going to get new episodes of the podcast soon?"
Well, great. Apparently,
I love that comment. I just would say, Cash Out Season, thank you very much. We appreciate you and those like you that are following along. And you ask and you shall receive. Here it is, the next episode of the podcast.
this is for cash out season. Um, great. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for everyone that's following along. That's really exciting and scary that actually people are listening. So, um, but good. We got a lot to catch up on because we didn't have an episode last week. This is probably what cash out season was alluding to, um, with Thanksgiving and stuff. I mean, we were super busy here. I put my family to work doing a bunch of housework, which was cruel of me, I guess, but it was good. We got some stuff. Um, just very busy though, so it's a crazy week, and crazy time of year. But we're back. We have plenty to discuss. Um, Anything we should mention before getting into it?
I don't think so. We got a lot to recap. Let's just dive right in.
Yeah, good. All right. So the first one is this wonderful game that Ajay had a fun time with the film review, I'm sure, because it became basically a whiteout by the end of it. But it was Steelers Browns on Thursday night, uh, basically 2 weeks ago now. Um, not a great time for Steelers fans, I guess. I mean, this is how it's often gone for us in Cleveland in recent years. We just sort of get dominated at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and then it sort of snowballs from there. The offense can't stay on the field, the defense gets gassed, and they start, running on us pretty well. And it just felt like the same kind of thing was happening as has been happening to us in Cleveland. Um, as much as we seem to have like the Ravens number, I think honestly the Browns have our number at least when we played them in Cleveland recently. It's a little strange, um, but uh, but yeah, we made it interesting at least at the end there. And honestly, Russell Wilson had some pretty good numbers in that game, but especially considering how much snow was coming down, but wasn't enough to pull out the victory. Um, uh, I don't have a well, let's see if how much I remember about the game, to be honest. So Jameis Winston was awesome. Like the scramble he had to score that touchdown, where he basically got flipped over and landed on his butt in the end zone. Like that was just like that was awesome, right? Like that. I don't know. The guy is like too likable not to feel good for him when good things happen to him. I think even as a Steelers fan, and the good things are at our expense. It's you still have to feel good for him. And someone had a clip on and maybe it was Twitter about him trying to draw us off sides, and he shouted something like "jump off side, damn" or something. Uh, it's just I don't know. He's very. It's hard not to like the guy, and it's like interesting that the Browns have both him and like the least likable quarterback in the league, and Deshaun Watson. So I don't know how that happened, but uh, yeah, we didn't look good. I don't think in like any phase of the game do we look very good that week, and no wonder that we lost. um, do I have any more insight than that? I mean, we have been very bad historically on Thursday night road games as long as I can remember. And I guess there was a time when it seemed like basically every team was bad on the road on Thursday night, and that Thursday night home field advantage was like even better than regular home field advantage. I don't know if that's still true or if we just haven't figured out how to like adapt our schedule to a short week like that. But we're not good at it, um, and it's a bummer. But we get another chance at Cleveland next week, so we'll see how that goes.
Very quickly. So I feel like the best recap I've heard of this game came on the film review that I put up for the Steelers Browns game, and at CMB1006 commented on YouTube. Mind you, this is in all caps with no punctuation. He said, Steelers said, Dad, can we stay up late? Winston said, no, go to your room, go to sleep.
The punctuation just goes right into
Yeah. I feel like that's a fair assessment of the game.
yeah.
I will say, like, for as badly as the Steelers played in this game, there were so many moments where this game could have been won, including on the Jameis play you're talking about. Like, Nick Herbig had him. Like, he had the sack. He just, like, stumbled. He, like, slipped or tripped in the snow. I feel like there's no way otherwise he doesn't bring him down. Like, he was there. He was screaming across the pocket to come get him, and then suddenly he stumbled enough and tried to lunge as he was stumbling but wasn't able to get him. Otherwise, I feel like that would have been a sack. And that was fourth down, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was. I forgot about that. That would man. I mean, I guess there's a good spin on that, right? Every loss this year has been a very close one and one that we definitely could have won. So that's I think that's the mark of a solid team, right? You're very closely in all your losses, and some of your wins are blowouts. So that's good. Um, yeah, it was a wasn't a, I'm so sick of these games going the same way. Like they're late weeknight games, and they end with a gut punch to Steelers fans. We've had like I think at least two of them this year, the Cowboys and this one. The Cowboys being like a Sunday night game, but still, it's late and you have to like, go to bed and then get up early the next day and be mad about this. And not the best. Um, but how mad can you be? The Browns deserve a few. I was mad, like, Miles Garrett really had a good one. uh, he was, as they say, on one against us. And I don't know if he had like extra motivation because there was that little bit of like TJ Watt saying I wasn't surprised, but something about when Miles Garrett won Defensive Player of the Year last year. There's a little bit of I think. I mean, they claim there's not, but there's a little bit of animosity there between them. I think
Hmm.
about Watt thinking he should have won it and Miles and Garrett thinking he should have won it. So, um, I guess understandably so, you have big egos on this stage. Um,
The other thing
yeah,
I
that was
would
not
say
fun to
is,
dominate us so much in the first half. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, he did. But even more interesting to me on the film review is I felt like Isaac Siumalu at left guard had a real rough day. Like he got blown up a couple times on very key plays and was honestly the reason why a couple plays didn't work or terrible things happened. Especially on there was a big fourth down where he got blown up. And I'm trying to remember there was a play action pass. Oh, that was the one where Myles Garrett stripped Russell Wilson. That was because Isaac Seumalo got blown up.
See, the narrative that came out of that game was that it was really Dan Moore that was. I mean, I'm sure he had his struggles there, but I think he got the brunt of the blame from Steelers fans. But it's interesting that Sayamalu was maybe comparably bad and a comparable reason for our failures there.
Yeah, like as awesome as that Miles Garrett play was on the strip sack, uh, he like Dan Moore was going to run him around the arc. Like Dan Moore did fine on that play. It's just that Siumalu, well, so it was a combination. Siumalu gets blown up, and then they're running a play action to Najee Harris, and Harris is trying to escape to his route. And Siumalu is so far back that Harris ends up running into him and further compounding Siumalu's problem, allowing the defensive tackle to just get right in Wilson's face. And so Wilson doesn't have any angle to step up. So as he tries to run by, Myles Garrett, who has like the longest arms ever, is able to rake across the ball. But I don't put any blame on Dan Moore for that play, actually. If the pocket's intact, Wilson steps up and Dan Moore just flushes Myles Garrett right around the back of the pocket.
And then you get the dump off to Harris maybe or something, and we don't fumble and turn it over. Yeah. No. Well, it's like a butterfly effect, right? There's so many things that have to go right, and if one thing goes wrong, then sometimes like eight other things go wrong because of that one thing, and that's I guess what
Oh
happened
yeah,
here.
we will definitely talk about that in regard to the Chiefs Raiders game because there was a lot of those.
Yeah.
There was one big butterfly at the left tackle position, and it caused a lot of effect.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about how much that is butterflying essentially for you. Like, is that the source of all the problems?
It's
But
a source of many of them, but we'll get into that.
yeah,
Uh, the other thing that I thought, I don't know, it was surprising to me that the Steelers, because they came all the way back in this game. Like it looked like there were a couple times. I feel like the first time I started being like, this might be a problem was when Myles Garrett had the strip sack. And even then, that was okay. And then the Jameis touchdown, that fourth down run, was when I was like, oh, they might actually lose this game. But then the Steelers just, weirdly enough, the infusion of Justin Fields, I feel like, was what kind of sparked the offense. They put him in. He had that big run. There were a couple big plays, and suddenly it seemed like things were going again.
yeah, yeah. That was interesting to put him in. Like, I couldn't actually tell what was going on at that point. Like, were we did we? I guess we just have these packages where we're gonna mix it up, and it seemed like we're pretty stagnant right now. Let's mix it up now and see what happens. I guess that must have been the thinking. But for a second there, I wondered, like, are we just benching Wilson and going back to Fields, which would have been a huge, interesting narrative. But based on how the next game went, I'm glad we didn't do that. But yeah, I think it's good to have those at least on tape because they are going to make people prepare, spend a lot of their time preparing for Fields packages, even if we don't end up using them very much, right? So if you can eat into their practice time for that, then great.
Although I will say, and that's going to be a video I'm going to post tonight. I have the clips ready to like record, but I will I don't understand how teams are not ready for the zone read when Justin Fields comes in. Like he comes in and it's like they run a zone read, he keeps it, and the end guy crashes in and he just runs around. He did
Yeah,
it
how
against the
the
Bengals, he
Bengals
did
did
it
not
against
know
the
that was
Ravens.
coming.
like
Like, I don't know. Everyone knows that's what he's in there for. We have yet to, pass. Maybe we have passed with him once in one of those situations. Yeah, we did actually in the Browns game, I
in the
think.
Browns game, which
Yeah,
got a lot of flack.
yeah. But I think there's a point to that, right? You don't want to do the same thing every time he's in there, right? Because then teams just know what he's in there for. So I didn't really hate the call. I hated it in that it got a bad result in the moment, but sort of big picture, I don't think it's terrible.
But it wasn't clear to me that the problem with that play was the throw. Like for all the people that were like, well, why did they bring Wilson? Why didn't they let Wilson make that play? Like, yeah, Wilson might have underthrown a moon ball and maybe that's caught. So but it's not like it was a bad throw. I feel like Pickens just got kind of tangled up with the defender. I think the throw was okay though.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of Fields' deep shots this season have been, I think, pretty good, right? There's not a lot to complain about. Maybe I just have selective memory at this point, but um, they're not moon balls typically. Although he did have one or two recently, but yeah, it wasn't wonderful. Um, I don't know. I would like to blame like the weather or some, but the weather was fine while we were getting dominated in the first half, and I think it's just we don't know how to win in Cleveland. I don't know what it is anymore, but they have our number.
Which is funny because didn't Roethlisberger have like the longest streak of not losing in Ohio or something?
Yeah, yeah. He always on his podcast jokes about how much he owned Cleveland essentially. Like he won there more than like any Cleveland quarterback from like I think while he was Steelers. I don't remember, but yeah, we're used to winning against Cleveland, and it's definitely a change of pace not to be. But
That's kind of like how I think Andy Reid is tied for the winningest coach in Allegiant Stadium, the most wins in Allegiant Stadium. He's tied with Josh McDaniel.
yeah, that's those things are never good when you're on the bad side of that, right? Yeah, I don't honestly. I've like sort of shut out some of this game. I think because it was so unfun. And the main thing I remember was just like feeling oddly happy for Winston toward the end of this, and thinking like I shouldn't be happy right now, but like the guy deserves it. But was there other stuff that stood out to you? I mean, you did the film review probably, so you might have more a more good memory of the high points or the low points.
Well, I think the biggest thing that was a problem to me of it, because I think it was just overall it was a sloppy game. There were a couple bad plays, especially by Sumalu. The defense was generally like okay. It wasn't actually so bad on rewatch. I really thought once Dante Jackson got that pick, the game would have been over. Like that was, but I think the thing that was most troublesome to me is the Steelers cannot get like a yard when they need a yard, and I wonder if that's going to come back to haunt them. Like there were a couple of those fourth downs where just get a yard, and I know Seumalo didn't have a good game, and that was part of it. Like the interior was just getting blown off the ball, but that was a little tough.
Yeah, yeah. I think that one that seemed like the worst short yardage game we've had in a while. But I do think we haven't been a really good short yardage team this year, which has been a problem occasionally for us, and it does really hurt you, right? Like to be able to get a yard when you have 1 yard on third or fourth down is a huge advantage if you can do it reliably, and we have not.
And it can make the play calling so much easier on those like second and medium or second and short situations. You're not worried about taking a shot if you have second and two because you know you can just get the first down on the ground.
Yeah, right. It opens up a lot for you. That's true. Um, yeah,
But the only other thing I'll say is it was aesthetically nice to have a snow game. It was our first snow game of the year. It
yeah.
looked nice on TV. Not so much on all 22, but it looked nice on TV.
I mean, all 22, you're getting like how many, probably like hundreds of feet of snow between you and the players, right? So it's very hard to see any. I always like remember when I was like young and I was watching football on TV and you would see like either it was rain or snow and you'd be getting a really far away camera shot of someone, but you couldn't tell that it was far away, and so it would just look like I've never seen it rain that hard in my life. It's like no, it's actually not that hard. It's just that you're seeing through so much space there. Um, but I think that certainly made this game look like holy cow, it's really coming down. And probably it was, but they had to like scrape off the yard lines and whatnot, which I hadn't
And
seen.
they had to like superimpose numbers on the field and everything. That was
Yeah, yeah. Um, all right. Well, yeah. So it's I guess the not nothing more insightful here, but it's interesting that coming out of the bye week, uh, the the games that we've had and won versus the games we've had and lost. You wouldn't have made. I would not have predicted this, right? The Commanders, the Ravens, and the Bengals. We beat them all, but we we lose to the Browns. A little bit surprising, but I guess as it played out, it wasn't as surprising as you might have thought.
yeah.
Anyway, want to go on to Chiefs Panthers?
Yeah, Chiefs Panthers. wasn't the result that people probably expected, with the Chiefs being locked in a 27-27 game at the very end and needing to kick a game-winning field goal with a former practice squad kicker at the very end to win it. Yeah, it was an interesting game in that the offense really looked good, and there were a lot of things said about the defense, and I think some of them fair. And honestly, on rewatch, some of them were like, I thought Bryce Young was just really good. Like, I went and looked at the film and I actually made a clip about it, specifically about the Chiefs' pass defense. And honestly, most of the throws that I looked at, it was just like Bryce Young just put it on a spot. Like, he really made some throws. Which is not, on one hand, not good that someone who had been struggling looks so good against your defense, but at the same time, like, a good throw is, like, a perfect offense is always going to be perfect defense. And I think sometimes they just, had guys in pretty tight coverage, the throw was on the money. And the one thing that you can say about Chiefs defensive backs fairly consistently with everyone since Tyrann Mathieu left is the ball skills are not a top trait, Once, like, Chiefs DBs often will stay in your hip pocket, maybe, against the Raiders, maybe not so much, but in general. But they won't necessarily win with the ball in the air. So, and Bryce Young put it up in the air, and guys went up and got it.
Yeah, I saw PFF had, he had maybe like the most big time throws in the last 2 weeks or something like that. But it sounds like yeah, I don't know if turning a corner is too generous, but he's finally playing like maybe they were hoping he would be for a while. Um, and it's always frustrating when you're playing a quarterback that has been pretty like struggling a ton, and then they play you, and suddenly they like look like they know what they're doing again. It's like, are we bad or are they suddenly good? And it's actually especially frustrating when they're suddenly good, right? Because, well, why did it have to happen this week, right?
Yeah.
um,
Well, I think we both have experienced that with Zach Wilson in the past couple of years. That
yeah,
he like tore up the Steelers once, and he played a really good game against us on Sunday Night Football on Week 4 last year. Like, at the second half, I was like, do we just stink all of a sudden? Like, Zach Wilson was just making amazing throws. So I don't know. It happens.
yeah, it does, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. Like maybe we're just terrible, or maybe we just have bad luck, but whatever it is. Um, yeah. So what was your emotional state in that game? Were you upset that was closer than it should have been, or was it just like, what happens happens? It's an NFC team, so it doesn't really matter in some sense. But I mean, it matters for you and wanting to keep the 1 seed, I guess. But
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't terribly bothered. I mean, obviously, I got annoyed when they came back and tied it because it wasn't. I believe it was like 20-9 at halftime. Is that correct? And then there weren't a lot of drives in the second half. The Panthers had a really long drive that took up like over half of the third quarter to come down and score a touchdown. And then I don't know. Just didn't feel like we played that badly. Like, it was not an ideal game. It's one of those, we went on the road and you just wanted to get a win. And there was never a time where I was like, we're going to lose this game. It was always like, I wish we were winning by more than this. But I don't know. It wasn't a terribly troubling game for me. Not as troubling as the Raiders game. I think the Panthers game was more just like, well, we should have played better, but their quarterback had a really good day and we made a couple mistakes. And ultimately, we weren't ever like fearing for our lives here. They only tied it at the very end, and then we just came down and kicked a field goal as time expired.
Mahomes had a good day, right? I remember checking his numbers, and they were like, that's what you would have
He had a good day, and I think it was a continuation of the Noah Gray like coming out party. Noah Gray had 2 touchdowns, and more than anything, I thought like everything's blurring together, but I believe this was his first touchdown. Both of his touchdowns were telling, I think, but one of the ones that I'm thinking of is from the Bills game. But the first touchdown he scored against the Panthers was a cover 0 blitz, and so it's one of those where you trust you got to win against man. And you got to get the ball out quick. And Noah Gray was clearly the primary read. He was the guy going to the end zone. So I think it was even just a faith thing from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes that like this is our guy. And Mahomes like checked at the line. It was very clear he was identifying cover zero to everybody, and that this is what he wanted, and he wanted Gray in the end zone, and Gray went up and got it. So he's to the point where I think he's a number one tight end. Now, he's not an elite number one tight end. Like he wouldn't be, but I feel, could Noah Gray, like if he was your starting tight end, could he be the 10th best tight end in the league? I think certainly. And so it's nice to have him as our number two guy.
Yeah, he's like one of those two-headed tight end monsters, really, with him and Kelsey. At least it could be. How did Hopkins play in that game? I don't remember much.
Hopkins caught a touchdown, and I think he had somewhere. I'm kind of spitballing now. I think he had something like 50 yards, if I remember correctly, in that game. But I will look it up real quick.
I did think I remember him more in the Raiders game, and he seemed like maybe the best receiver in that one. Although Noah Gray had another good game in that one too. So,
it was less. It was 5 for 35. Hopkins in the Panthers game.
No, still seems like he's paying off, right? That's a good midseason signing. Maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but is there a chance Hollywood Brown is coming back very soon?
It seems like it. Yeah. So it seems like he's going to be back before the end of the regular season, which actually is pretty consistent with what we thought at the beginning of the year. Like we were kind of aiming for week 15, 16, something like that. So the hope is that he'll come back like a couple games before the playoffs so that he can get worked in a little bit. Which, I mean, timing wise, that's really good. Like, so to me, the Panthers game was like worthy. They started expanding his usage. Gray, they started expanding his usage. Then the Raiders game, again, Hopkins is starting to expand. So I just feel like everything's slowly coming together with the passing game. And if you add Brown, who can also win at all three levels, this could be something. I feel like this could be a really formidable offense if the left tackle position is solved.
Yeah. We should get to that. Was it much of an issue against the Panthers?
Not that I recall. Actually, the most irritated I was with the pass protection was over on the right side. So the Chiefs have been really struggling with stunts. And it's often with stunts that involve, I guess you would call it an end tackle stunt to the right side of the Chiefs line. So this is when the defensive end to the offense's right, so the defense's left, will crash into the right guard and allow the defensive tackle to loop around against the offensive tackle. And the Chiefs struggle with this because Jawan Taylor on the right side takes a very deep pass set. And so when he comes back, it allows the end a lot of room to just come in and nail Trey Smith, the guard. If it's hard to pass that block off because Taylor drops so far back, he's behind Trey Smith. So if Taylor were parallel with Trey Smith, then if the end is trying to loop around, he can kind of pass that block off. But since he's behind, the end can just slam right into Trey Smith's side. He almost like blindsides him. And Taylor's trying to follow that guy in, which allows the defensive tackle then to loop all the way around. And they like doing it to our right side because Mahomes likes bailing to the right. So when he sees the interior pressure come when the end crash in, he used to at the beginning of the year, he was just bailing right into the path of that looping defensive tackle. He's not doing that anymore. He's like wizened up to it. He did it once against the Panthers, unfortunately, but that was the big problem I had with pass protection. The left side actually looked okay. We know Wanya Morris has been playing hurt since the Denver game, and my guess is the kind of Sunday to Friday transition probably exacerbated this for Wanya, or he like re-injured it in the Panthers game because he looked worse against the Raiders by far than he did against the Panthers.
Yeah. He got benched against the Raiders, right? It was put Kingsley in for him.
No, they actually moved Joe Tooney to left tackle and brought Mike Caliendo in to play guard. That's not a great sign for Kingsley. But
Yeah.
this is just going to end up being like a reset for next year situation for Kingsley, I think.
Yeah. Well, what more should we hit on from the Panthers game before going to talk about this wonderful one versus the Raiders?
Not much else with the Panthers game. I think it was one of those kind of you go on the road, you play a team that's feisty. It's closer than it should have been, but I don't know that there was a ton to be scared about from that game.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Raiders game. Also, I mean, after rewatch, like I'm not as mad about it as I was before. So, unfortunately, if people are coming here to hear me just like crap on the Chiefs' performances, unfortunately, that's not like the Chiefs had a couple problems in the Raiders game. One was the left tackle just Wanya Morris was not able to protect around the edge. And his solution for that, he was unfortunately using the same technique every single time. And I posted a video breaking this down too. He was taking his outside, his left arm, and trying to go right into the center of the chest of the defensive end. It was usually K. Lavon Chason was the guy who was beating him the most. And what Chason started doing, he just started doing the exact same thing. He would just take two hands, swipe his outside hand off of him, and then just run right around him. And Wanya Morris wasn't setting deep enough to protect against that. And I think his mobility was hampered because he's hurt. And once you start doing the same thing over and over again in the NFL, they're going to be wizened to it. And I mean, just so many crucial plays were blown up because Wanya Morris could not hold up against pressure on the end, and that really derailed our offense in that game.
Did Tooney do any better when he was in there?
I mean, he did get beaten around the edge. It's a really small sample size. I think we threw the ball twice with Tooney there. He did get walked back into Mahomes at least once, but he was at least dying slowly, as they say.
Yeah.
The real issue with at the end of the game was we got pressure from the other side. It looks like Travis Kelce just let a free rusher through that hit Mahomes on the play that would have iced the game. He threw a bomb to Worthy and he overthrew him.
Oh yeah.
I still one of these days I hope Mahomes will be able to accurately throw it to Worthy again. But that one was a tougher throw than most because he did get nailed in the ribs. But
yeah. So it's hard to judge, I guess. I mean, maybe you can do a better job than I could, but I thought it was hard to judge Mahomes in that one because of all the pressure. But and it, I think he missed Kelsey in the end zone at one point, right? And then Hopkins had a wide open drop over the middle. So some of those
yeah.
incompletions, it sort of hit or miss whether it was Mahomes or whether it was the receivers or what was going on or the line.
Yeah, I think the Kelsey miss, was more just a miscommunication. It was, I would put it more on Kelsey because, again, it was cover zero. We got an all-out blitz. Kelsey's running open. He just, Kelsey likes to ad lib. And that's one thing if you have time, but Mahomes didn't have the time. He was stepping up in the pocket. If Kelsey just continued on his trajectory, that's a touchdown. And he actually had enough separate. He didn't need to double around. I'm not, and I'm sure it's just one of those on the same page thing. But Mahomes didn't have the time for Kelsey to be making that final move that he did. He had to get the ball out. So that was, I don't think it was an inaccurate throw. It was just not on the same page. Hopkins' drop was really unfortunate and hilarious because I think maybe not even 10 minutes before I had tweeted that DeAndre Hopkins' hands are unreal. It's crazy at this point. And then I don't think he'll drop a pass like that for the entire rest of the year. And it was so annoying it had to happen at that point.
Yeah, I mean, if he catches that in it was in stride, right? If he catches that in stride, it looked like he could have split the defense and gone for ways. But.
And we really needed a drive, and that right after that incompletion, the Raiders came and had a bomb for a touchdown and took the lead.
Oh yeah.
I just realized we're really approaching a break, so maybe we should
good
cut
point.
it here.
Yeah, before we get cut off by Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be back to recap more of this Chiefs Raiders game in a bit. We're back with more Steeler thoughts and Chief feelings. So we were just discussing the issues in the Raiders game, and I don't know exactly where we left things, to be honest. I mean, we were talking about obviously the struggles at left tackle, but I kind of wanted to get a sense, unless you wanted to pick up on something that I'm forgetting we were talking about. I wanted to get a sense for like how you think that really, how much that derailed the rest of the offense. Um,
I think pretty significantly. I feel like Mahomes was pretty jittery. And honestly, even without it, like a lot of plays just got blown up. Even the touchdown we scored, which I thought was just a phenomenal throw from Mahomes, he just got absolutely nailed and somehow managed to get it over to Justin Watson. Like the offense, it was such a problem at the left tackle position that the offense just couldn't function.
mm.
It was too much of a hindrance for a functional offense, unfortunately. And that was more so as the game progressed. But it's not like we started out doing great at the left tackle position either. And it just becomes a thing in your quarterback's head. Even there were times when the pocket was okay, and you could tell Mahomes' internal clock was like, I don't feel like I have a lot of time here.
Yeah, yeah, you get the happy feet or whatever that Peyton Manning used to get. uh, yeah. Do you think it affected the defense too? Because the defense I felt like didn't have its best game in this one either. I mean, the Raiders had 400 some yards, and O'Connell had hit some shots. I thought
Yeah, I'm in
because
two
like this,
minds about the.
I don't mean to be facetious, right? It could affect the defense, right? It could be that the offense not getting plays, not staying on the field, just the defense gets gassed or whatever. Like this is the kind of thing that can happen.
Yeah, so the defensive performance to me is a little more like nuanced. It was simultaneously not good, but it also wasn't as bad as it looked. Like really, the defense gave up 14 points on two drives, one of which was like a 26-yard drive or something because of a huge kick return, and the other one was secondary to like a 50-yard bomb. So like the defense essentially on those two scoring drives had like two bad plays. And they had bad plays elsewhere, but managed to hold the Raiders to field goals throughout the rest of the game. I mean, it was
Field goal
it
attempt.
was or attempts. That's fair, yeah. And there were long ones too. And it was clearly the cold must have really been affecting the ball because Carlson couldn't get any. I know his career long is only 54, but like some of those were like real ducks. And even the Chiefs attempted like a 58-yarder with Matthew Wright that didn't have any chance in that cold. So. Yeah, I mean, it was not a good defensive performance, but it was also one that, like, if not for like two bad plays, like the Raiders may score 6 points in this entire game. So I don't know. It's troubling to me how inconsistent the coverage is more than anything, because I thought the defensive line had one of its best games in a long time, and I'm hoping less of that is due to Aiden O'Connell's lack of mobility. More of it to me was getting Charles Omenihu back. We actually had plays now where like two people were winning, and
Right,
we
that's what I was
haven't had
thinking.
that for a while.
Looked like that for Chris Jones being like the only one that used to win. Like that's avoidable, right? When one person wins, you just move around. But when it's more than one person, it's a lot harder. And Jones had 2 sacks in this, right? Was it two?
Yeah, he had 2 sacks, and it's not because I thought he played better than he's been playing. It's just that when he pressured O'Connell, like you said, like he had nowhere to go a couple of times, so he could actually sack him.
Yeah, yeah. So having two competent pass rushers is sort of not just linearly better than having one competent pass rusher. It is exponentially better.
Right? Yeah, the results are definitely more than just additive. Yeah, that's true. Um, I I don't know what to make of the Chiefs in the second, because it does seem like now the second cornerback is starting to rear its ugly head as being a problem. Najee Johnson got benched, which was interesting because I thought after the Panthers game, my opinion was that he was getting unfair criticism. I thought, like I said, Bryce Young made a couple good throws where he was in coverage. I don't know what Najee Johnson did on the big pass to Jacoby Myers in this game. He was playing as if he had like a flat responsibility, but there was no one in the flat, and he didn't have help over the top. So I don't know what to make of that one. Joshua Williams actually played really well after coming in for Najee Johnson. Joshua Williams' problem is that he loses discipline in zone coverage and will sometimes trail guys for too long, and then someone else will come into his zone and be wide open. He's a pretty good, actually a very good man corner, especially press man. So there are ways to use him to be really effective. You wonder if we're going to play him, the Chiefs are going to go a little more man heavy than usual. Mm-hmm. Or I heard someone suggest they could play like cover 3 and have like Joshua Williams just be responsible for that deep third where he just can't carry vertically, so he didn't have to. I think when he plays more of an intermediate or underneath route, that's when he can like chase someone and someone else come back into his area. So, right. Although he had a couple good plays in zone in this game, he almost had a pick. So I don't know. That is, I think, somewhat troubling. But it's just hard for me to be too like. This game simultaneously pointed out issues, but to me they weren't like issues that are like you can't win the Super Bowl. We know that the defense under Spagnuolo tends to round itself into form toward the end of the year and into the playoffs. I think Spagnuolo is trying people out in different positions to see what people can and can't do, and I think he's good enough at scheming around people's strengths that he'll have some answers in the playoffs that rely on players to do what they're good at rather than clearly some guys are doing things that they're not so good at right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess this is just the Chiefs' MO, right? Like, we're going to experiment a bit during the regular season when we can afford to do it. And you can afford it more this year than you could last year. And somehow, yeah, you still have the 1 seed and at least, partially in the bag. Go ahead, sorry.
So I think there are like parallels on the offense and defense right now. The wide receiver room is progressing in a very encouraging manner, but we need left tackle to be solidified. And I think the defensive line for the Chiefs is progressing in a very encouraging manner, but we need the secondary and particularly cornerback 2 to be solidified. I think if we're able to shore up left tackle, you're just hoping that DJ Humphries can come in and play at a passable. He just has to play as well as Donovan Smith did down the stretch last year. Like, just be okay and it will be all right.
Nice, totally, that's all.
Yeah, like, which I don't think is too much to ask, and hopefully can. And DJ Humphries coming in might help Wanya Morris get healthy, in which case Wanya Morris was playing passably for most of the year. The only worry I have is that it followed kind of a similar pattern last year where the more Wanya was on the field, the more teams seemed to be able to figure out what to do against him. Interestingly, his worst game last year was against the Raiders, too. He got benched after the Raiders game and never ended up coming back. But that's the other part of it to me is that maybe having DJ Humphries come in will just help Wanya get healthy, too.
Do you think there's any... I mean, do they do a lot of helping, like, with the left? Like, do they keep it back into Chip much? I can't remember that happening much in this game, but I watched the highlights. I didn't watch the game itself.
So historically, Andy Reid does not want to do that. He did for more than usual in this game, but for Andy Reid, more than usual is still less than a lot of people do. But we even had like that shot play to Worthy at the end that we missed was a 9-man protection. Worthy was the only guy that went out on a route on that play. And yet Mahomes was still pressured. So that was problematic.
Yeah, that's not wonderful. But why not Chip or have extra guys in to help? Like, what's Reed's thinking there? Do you know?
He just wants as many guys out catching passes as possible. But he did do a lot of 3-man routes where he had 2 people kind of in to help the protection. There were a lot more 7-man protections than I'm used to, but Andy Reid likes all 5 of those eligible receivers going out if he can.
Yeah. Good. Well, they pulled it out. Do you want to discuss your emotions near the end there when the Raiders were driving and then snapped early on themselves?
Well, I mean, it was very similar to the Broncos game in which like it was like the difference being that I don't know that I'd resign that we had lost. Like I was kind of, once you've blocked a kick, you're just like, maybe we'll block this one, or maybe he'll miss one because he's missed a ton of them. But I was a little curious as to why the Raiders were trying to run a play there, because I think there were like 15 or 16 seconds left. They had no timeouts, and it was third down. So like they couldn't like place the ball at a hash or something because they didn't have a timeout and they couldn't spike the ball after third down. They would be fourth down. And so I just didn't know what they were trying to do. Like maybe try to hit an out route to make it a little closer. And then the other bit was like, why did it take so long for them to get their play in? It was a dead ball situation. They had spiked it on the previous play. So it's not like it was like a running clock or anything. For some reason, like on rewatch, Aiden O'Connell doesn't start telling the play to people in the huddle until they're like 11 seconds or 12 seconds on the play clock.
Wow.
Which is even weirder because the speakers in his helmet cut off at 15 seconds. So did they just not ever tell him a play? Or I don't know. Like,
And then he waited a few seconds to say anything to the team.
Yeah.
Like if they told him, yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
cool.
just were hurrying up to the line so much. I mean, for me, the emotion, the difference was like the Broncos game, it was just like immediate relief. The Raiders game, my initial was like, what just happened? Because like the ball came out, there was a scramble. The refs were trying to blow the play afterward. And so I didn't know if they were going to replay it. I didn't know if they were going to, it was a live, like, and then, after kind of dissecting everything afterward, like it looks like the correct call was made. It was an illegal shift and it was a live ball penalty. And like I've said on the video that I posted, I played like the actual clip with the audio, and you can hear like you cannot hear a whistle until Nick Bolton has recovered the ball. There are a lot of conspiracy theorists out there trying to come up with different reasons why they feel like the refs should have replayed that play or were changing their mind in the middle or something. But in the moment, obviously, it's very confusing. So my emotions were like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Are we getting this ball? Are we not getting this ball? What are they going to call? And then, I don't know. It's like, I used to hate it a lot when people would say things like, well, there are reasons why bad teams stay bad. And it's just like, well, in some cases, like, because I tell you what, the Chiefs didn't win that game. And the best way I heard it phrased was by Seth Kaiser on the Kansas City Sports Network, who said, the Chiefs happened to be on the field while another team lost the game. I feel like that's kind of what happened at the end.
Yeah. It wasn't, it wasn't super convincing, at least from my view of the highlights, but it was a win's a win, as they say. But you don't always feel the same after a win, so it's not true that a win feels like a win. This is probably like a win felt like well, okay, it's better than a loss. But
I will say the film review helped a lot, though, because going through and seeing, like, there were so many plays that if they had just gone differently a little bit, this would have been a much more comfortable game. I think the offense is doing what it needs to do. I'm actually very encouraged by the trajectory here. I just think if DJ Humphries is okay, I think this will be a formidable offense in the playoffs. I don't have as many answers for the defense, but I really trust Steve Spagnuolo. Like, he's done this year after year, figuring out. The biggest example to me was in 2019, the first Super Bowl we won. Juan Thornhill, our starting safety, tore his ACL in week 17, and he just moved Kendall Fuller, our slot corner, to safety, and Fuller played awesome through the playoffs as a safety. He had the game-sealing interception of Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of the Super Bowl. So Spagnuolo really pulls things out, and I think that he said as much, that he uses the season to try to determine what the team is good at, and then try to start really spamming what the team's good at in the playoffs. So I think I still have faith that the defense will get this figured out, especially because the D-line looked better than it has in weeks. So I think we'll be okay.
yeah, things will snap in place. Hopefully, they can wait until after Christmas to really solidify the schemes they're going to be working in the playoffs. But yeah, good. Anything else that you wanted to hit from really either of those games?
Let me see. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Mahomes to Hopkins, I think, is going to be real. Like this, because in addition, Hopkins had 90 yards and he had 2 long pass interference penalties too, and he had that drop. this could have been a huge game for Hopkins. So, and Chris Jones having 2 sacks might be a harbinger of some more pressure from the defense. So, I'm encouraged. I think things will look better in the next coming weeks, assuming left tackle is figured out and Spagnuolo comes up with a scheme that kind of works with his talent.
Yeah, and Mahomes still, I think, fairly clearly really trusts Hopkins in a way that, like, he doesn't seem to. It's not normal for him to just put balls up for grabs like he does to Hopkins.
Not at all. Not at all. And he clearly understands where Hopkins is going because the balls down the field seem a lot more accurate than the ones to Xavier Worthy. They're on the same page in a way that is not the case for Worthy. And Mahomes got a PI on an underthrown ball. I actually tweeted out that he must be watching Russell Wilson tape. Like, there you go. And a nice PI.
That was the one to Hopkins, right? Like sort of across the
Yeah.
field late.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what do you think was? Yeah, Worthy was not a huge factor in this, at least to my memory. I mean, maybe there was that incomplete one, the bomb. But do you think that? I mean, it had seemed like the last time we talked that Worthy was really like breaking out and he like impressively on the same page with Mahomes in a lot of respects. Do you think they've taken a step back, or what's going on there?
I think, they're not connecting on the deep balls, but they did against the Panthers, especially try to use Worthy in intermediate areas. And they did again in this game. I think he had 54 yards. So
Yeah.
I feel like what I do notice about Worthy is the role is expanding. He's running routes that he wasn't running before. And even then, oh yeah, there was like a missed intermediate out route that would have been a first down to Worthy too. Yeah, he and Mahomes just are just a tick off here and there. And it's like little things like maybe I'm reading too much into it, but on Worthy's out route, it kind of looks like instead of like sticking it and hitting the hard out, he kind of bends it. And at the time Mahomes throws it, he's running more diagonally. And Mahomes appears to throw it along that diagonal trajectory. And then right after Mahomes throws it, he kind of bends it further and goes horizontally. And I don't know if Mahomes can see that level of detail in real time. It's hard to tell, but he clearly threw the ball in the direction that Worthy was moving while he threw the ball. And then Worthy changed directions as the ball was coming out. So I don't know if it's either that or just miss the throw. But I really think that Worthy seems like he is a great route runner. He's got good hands. The only thing about him is that he doesn't catch through contact, but he's so fast he might not have to. They've got to figure this out. I think they're going to figure this out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm getting Hollywood Brown back if you do soon. That's just gonna give you more. I mean, I guess that could take some time to get on the same page again with Mahomes as well. But so regardless of whether he is on the same page, they are on the same page. I think defenses are going to be worried about him because he can, like you said, win at all levels of the field. So even just his presence on the field will be concerning and make a difference. Hollywood
And
Brown.
for Juju to be the fourth wide receiver and the fifth pass capturing option, maybe even sixth behind Noah Gray,
Yeah.
like suddenly this is a really deep room. So
Yeah.
because Juju's another guy that he's got Mahomes' trust for sure. Like he knows where to be. He set an awesome pick actually on a play for Worthy. He's very smart about his picks. Like Juju, he was picking the guy inside 1 yard, so he just like ran right through his chest. Like he and Justin Watson are, I think, one of the reasons they're on this team is that they're very smart about utilizing their routes to get other people open in ways that won't draw penalties. And I was impressed watching film this year at how good Juju is. Like he's a great, great picker.
Wasn't he? I was trying to when he first went to the Chiefs after being on the Steelers. I think you had told me some quote about how when he was learning offense from I guess it was Andy Reid that like the whys behind why they're doing everything was just like so much clearer in that context than it was on the Steelers. And I remember
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
thinking, right. Uh, yeah. Well, I'm still happy for Juju. He's one of those people like Jameis Winston that's just like hard to have any antipathy towards.
I did see someone say that like Juju is the one receiver that left the Steelers and wasn't a complete head case afterward.
Yeah, he is one of the rare. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders actually because of
Oh,
so the
yeah.
Ravens suspended Deontay Johnson because apparently he didn't want to go into the game against the Eagles. Was it the Eagles? Was it that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. uh, which is just like he's had a nothing of a season and already been traded from the Panthers to the Ravens, and now he's suspended. It's just like I don't know. I feel like if you're a receiver on the Steelers and you're doing well, you should not, you should do whatever it takes to stay there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It does not tend to go well when you leave. I guess Antonio Brown won a Super Bowl, but
He
that was
went through a lot of ups and downs to get to that Super Bowl. Like, if Tom Brady didn't love him, he wouldn't have won a Super Bowl.
yeah. I guess that's right. You got to luck out and find Tom Brady again, but yeah, no, some and you you had mentioned also about like if Pickens were on a different team, he would probably be he would probably fizzle out quickly, and I can see that too.
I still this might be my bold prediction for next year. I just feel like Pickens, it's gonna be like a Santonio Holmes situation where like he'll be traded and we'll be like, he was only traded for that? Like a fifth
Yeah.
round pick? Are you serious? And then like he'll be out of the league in 2 years.
That's a bold. I mean, that is like no Steelers fan that I know of is thinking anything in the ballpark of that, right? They think he's like one of the top receivers in the league, and all that. I can see it. I because of how many receivers have been good on us on our team, and then been nothing elsewhere. I could see it happening, but
So I'll make it a 2-part prediction. My prediction is next season is Pickens' last season as a Steeler, and I guess the 2027 season is his last season as like a relevant NFL player. I feel like it'll be something like that.
that
I mean,
is
it's just too like when Mike Tomlin's telling you to grow up. Like, come on now. Like,
yeah, publicly, right?
yeah.
Yeah, sure he does it privately, but yeah. Well, should we go on to the Steelers now that we're sort of already
Oh
doing
yeah.
some Steelers Bengals? Um, Fun game. Uh, it's been a while since we've had an offensive performance like that. 500 some, 520, I think, yards. Um, Russell Wilson had 400 some, 414 and three touchdowns. I mean, that's fun stuff. I did not expect that. I thought if we were going to win this game, it was going to be more of a slugfest and more of a slog, really, that we ended up winning on a late field goal or something. But there was a point there where we really had control of the game. It was like 41-24, and then of course the Bengals came back because they have such a good offense. They always do that, but we fortunately they also didn't know that Justin Fields is going to be running to the outside on
Oh
that
man.
third down. But
How does that keep happening? I don't understand.
I don't either. But yeah, no, I think let's see what's like the take home points from this game. The offense, uh, it was a lot of fun to watch them. I think this is what they say. Russ is cooking. He's cooking right now. Um, I think maybe like more schematically what was happening, I think, was that the Bengals were trying to sort of stack the line and play a deep cover two shell. And so that opened up a lot of sort of short dump off passes in the middle area. We had a lot of actually we had some screens that really went like we had some good gains on screens in this game that we haven't had a ton of success with before, both wide receiver and running back screens. And then just like yeah, those dump offs. And then, of course, there's some deep shots and then some ad libbing, like the touchdown to Fryer, which was cool. Sort of scrambling out of the
Oh
pocket
yeah.
and he's slinging it.
That was vintage Russell Wilson, I feel like.
Yeah, that was old school Russ. um, yeah, I mean the offense was very encouraging. I don't know how encouraged I guess we really ought to be. If it's, the Bengals defense isn't wonderful, they've given up a lot of points to a lot of people, but I guess it's still nice to when you put up 44, you got to be happy, right? I mean, part of that was a fumble recovery, but still, like that was a good offensive performance.
Well, I think part of that too indicates how hard Burrow was having to try to, because like there were 2 big fumbles, right?
Yeah,
And
the
didn't
Watt
Burrow throw a
caused
pick
one.
too?
Yeah, he did throw a pick, which was tipped. I think Hayward tipped it at the
Yeah.
line. Like Dante Jackson has like 5 picks. This year. I think all 5 have been like that was lucky, right? Like they just like sort of pop over to him somehow. Uh, but but yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining. I mean, maybe somehow we can keep that up. That would be great. But yeah, Burrow was really, yeah, he was pressing in this, and I guess that's what happens when
When
he's
you've got
up
that
on.
high powered of an offense that has to press that hard, like your offense is clearly doing something.
Yeah, yeah, it was good to see. Frymuth had a good game. I felt like we finally used him more like we should have been using him for a while. Those like
Like an
beloved.
all pro.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Um, and Pickens had those two okay, so focusing on the offense for now, I do want to talk about Joey Porter's six penalties on the defense, but still focusing on the offense for now. Yeah, Pickens had I think two 15-yard penalties. One for like the guns, which
They're really cracking down on that one,
yeah,
which I, on one hand, understand that, like, this is coming from, like, I don't remember how many years ago this was, but Rashad Fenton got in an argument, I think it was during a Raiders game with a Raiders player, and, like, very, very conspicuously mimed shooting a machine gun. Like, there was no doubt that's what he was doing. I was like, I remember watching that and being like, oh no, like that's I can't believe that wasn't flag. But now like people just like signal first down and they put two fingers out, and I'm just like, I don't know, like I feel like this is a little reading into stuff, but okay.
yeah, yeah. It's a little unclear to me that I mean the rule's the rule, so I guess that's you can't push it, but whether it should be the rule, I don't know.
But it like I feel like the difference is that gesture was not interpreted as a weapon until this year. It doesn't feel
Yeah,
like people have been doing all kinds of first down signaling for a long time. And I do feel like this has been one of the things they've been doing. It's just for some reason this year the NFL has decided that this is signaling a weapon, so we're not doing it.
yeah. It reminds me of the time Antonio Brown caught it and did like a kind of humping motion in the air. Yeah, but they penalized him for that too, but it was like he did it a couple times, in fact, and I think there was like it's like if you do two pumps, you're okay, but three pumps is the penalty, and he did three. Like he did one, two, and then dramatic pause, and then a third one, and got penalized for it. I was like that's amazing. I will take that penalty. But
The best part about that is that's literally a Key and Peele sketch. Like it's
oh yeah,
exactly, yeah, like they have him like in the end zone doing an end zone dance and he's hip thrusting. And I don't remember how many pumps they give him, but it's the same thing. They give him so
oh
many
yeah,
pumps
I've
and
seen
then,
this now. Yeah, I forgot about that. Was this maybe I'm actually like conflating the sketch with what happened, but I think Antonio Brown did exactly
no,
that.
I do remember there being an actual NFL instance that mirrored very closely the Key and Peele sketch to the point that I was just like, is this real?
Yeah.
And it
But
may
in the
have been
sketch, like
Antonio
the ref
Brown. I
is
don't
watching
remember.
very
Yeah,
closely,
yeah,
right?
he's like standing there
Yeah.
watching. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
I do remember there was I want to say it was a preseason game. Or I remember it being a Chris Collinsworth game, but Antonio Brown scored a touchdown and started like twerking in the end zone. And there's this like great shot from the NBC cameras where you just like see him twerking and you see the ref like pulling out the flag simultaneously in the same shot. It was a great one.
I wonder if that would still be a penalty nowadays. I feel like become more of a thing. So why would you penalize? I don't know. But anyway, how did we get here? Pickens was penalized for the guns, and for something else too, which was
Taunting, right? Didn't he do
yeah.
it? What
It
else
was
did he
that was
do?
like definitely yeah. I think that one was
That one, I remember that being
oh,
like,
yeah. That's your fault, Pickens. Um, yeah, and he was
and
also
to be charitable for him, he was like pulled down by the helmet on like the first touchdown of the
that's
game.
what I was gonna say. Like there was but that pick six on maybe our first drive, was it, or second drive? Um, you could definitely have called pass interference on that against who was
Or
it?
like illegal use of hands or something. Like he did,
Yeah,
uh, like I don't know, that did not seem legal.
yeah. No, it didn't look good. Um, but he kept his head somewhat in the game, and
Intermittently.
yeah, at least enough to score a touchdown on a screen and catch some deep bombs. But Yeah, so I think he definitely has to grow up, as Mike Tomlin was saying. And you could see this like he's still making plays for us, right? So there's in some sense like we're putting up with it, but you can imagine this actually like really costing us, like say in the playoffs or something, and then
Yeah.
at that point, like the fan base would turn against him. But they haven't yet. So um, I don't know. So that's like one of the bad parts of the offense, I guess. But the offensive performance as a whole was just really encouraging to see. And hopefully, it's a sign that if Russell Wilson can keep playing like this, man, I'm excited. But I mean, you can't keep expecting 400 yards every week. But that was fun to see. Um, Anything more I should say about the offense? I don't know. Well, one thing I will say is that a late long pass, I think 40 yards to Van Jefferson, that really sort of, I don't know if it iced the game, but it helped it helped ice it.
It was another cover zero play.
It's so strange though that like yeah, so Jefferson beats his corner to the inside. There's no one over the top, and he decides to run right toward the safety in the middle of the field. Uh, Not at all for no clear reason, really. If he just turned that outside, I think it's a touchdown. But regardless, I will complain about that, I guess. But yeah, anyway, the offense as a whole very good. I think clearly Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson were motivated by the poor performance in Cleveland and showed up for it in this one. Um,
It's funny too because when it got to like when the Bengals scored like 21, I was just like, this game is getting away from like this is not what we want to be doing here. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess the Steelers are keeping up today.
yeah, yeah. I think it sounds like we kind of planned on that. It sounds like we know we're not going to be like totally stopping this Bengals offense, so we need to put up some points this week. I could not help myself, and I watched the Hard Knocks episode.
Oh,
Um,
how was it?
it was pretty good. It was like cool to see Tomlin in that. Like you don't, I always see Tomlin at the podium after the game or like on the field, but like you actually got to see him like talking to players during the week and doing the film prep and stuff like that. So that was cool. It's the kind of side that like you always want to see and you never really get a window into it. So it was nice. Um, but
Did you see Tomlin say that he was certainly not going to watch it?
yeah, I think absolutely not. Uh, which I
Wait,
appreciate.
tangentially, are you going to watch the Aaron Rodgers Enigma thing on
Um,
Netflix?
Probably not. I'm not absolutely not though. Are you?
I think I will. Well, I realistically I won't because I won't have time to. But in a vacuum, I think I would because I'm just interested in how Aaron Rodgers perceives his story. Like I just want to see like what he thinks his like
Yeah.
he's having the opportunity now to sell his story in documentary form, and I'm just curious what his conception of this journey has been like recovering from the Achilles. I'm just very interested in his perspective. Not that I will believe it, but I just want to know what it is.
That's fair. I think it feels like a lot of quarterbacks when they have like this late career injury do something like this. And Ben did a kind of thing with his journey back from the elbow injury.
Oh,
It wasn't a Netflix thing. It was just videos they put on YouTube or whatever. But wonder what the motivation is there.
I think Alex Smith did like an ESPN series after his broken leg with the
Yeah,
were they the
that
Commanders? Yeah, I think they were the Washington football team at that point.
yeah, WFT. Yeah. Let's see. We've got about 5 minutes left for before another break. So I can say like yeah. So the defense in this one, I thought obviously giving up 38 points or 31 points after if you take the pick six off, not wonderful, but it is the Bengals. I thought they like made key plays at key times to get turnovers. I thought
Yeah,
TJ Watt with a strip sack, Nick Herbig I think had a strip sack. Was it a strip sack or just a sack? I think it was a strip sack.
yeah,
And Cam Hayward was a monster. I thought he got a ton of pressure in this one and a sack.
yeah.
Um, it was good to see. The line makes some big plays like that, and then uh, Joey Porter Jr. had 6 penalties called on him. Not, I think four were accepted. That's a terrible game. I don't, so I do think we had sort of encouraged, like, it sounds like that Tomlin and Terrell Austin have been encouraging him to be like very physical with their receivers because, they're just big and strong receivers and they can really dominate the game if you let them. So I think it was sort of like the game plan for him to be very physical with them, and probably we expected a couple penalties, maybe not six. Um, but so it's like hard to know how much that is, alarming versus how much that was just part of the plan here. But
I will say the one where he like tackled Yosivas in the end zone, I think
yeah,
that was
that was
one of
not a
the
good one.
dumbest penalties I've ever seen. I literally like watched that. And I was like, why did you do that? Like, why?
It was probably not catchable if I
Yeah,
remember.
I don't think it was catchable.
But
Like,
I don't,
so in
it's
that
never
sense, it
like an
shouldn't have been.
excuse nowadays. I don't like I haven't seen an uncatchable like reasoning for not throwing the pass interference flag in a long time, actually.
And I feel like now, if it is deemed uncatchable, it's got to be like not catchable by someone standing 3 feet out of bounds. Like it's like, it because I don't think that ball was catchable, but I feel like they give any benefit of the doubt. Like maybe he could have flipped and done a double handspring and God, I don't know,
Yeah.
But when I just. that's one of the few times where you watch a play and you're just like I had nothing more to say other than like, why did you do that? Like, why?
Yeah, that was definitely a bad one. That was an alarming one. And he's had stretches like this is. I think he's been really kind of like hot or cold now. Like he had a couple like a stretch of like 5 games earlier this year where I don't think he was penalized at all. But
Oh.
but he's had what 8 or 9 penalties I think in the last 2 games here. So I mean, that's a lot. um,
I just feel like
yeah,
he's too talented. I think he'll just refine his ability to be physical without, I feel like this is what physical corners do. They like find the line their first couple years and then learn how to skirt it.
yeah. Like the sort of the line with the not the same line, but the line within the Steelers organization right now is, he's got a target on his back, and so as it were, the other line, the line where that he can't cross before getting penalized, has shifted for him because it's just known that he has had all these penalties recently. So um, too many lines in that analogy there, but I don't know if that's right or not. But regardless, I'll take a break at just a second here. See if there's anything else to mention about the Steelers game.
I have a question to ask you. I'll save it for after the break. This tease,
Okay.
but it's coming off of this game and the Steelers' performance. I have a little more of a question about. Well, I won't give you any more than that. We'll see.
All right.
This was a very ham-handedly done tease.
We have a question coming up after the break. Yes, we are on
So
tenterhooks.
exciting. And we're back. So the much awaited question.
Yeah, man, I have been just pondering what it could be.
Yeah, this is really going to be worth it for everyone listening. Um, so I got the idea from the thought that was Bill Simmons brought up on his podcast this week about how he thought Russell Wilson was the comeback player of the year. And I wanted to pose it to you. First of all, like for the listeners that aren't aware, the AP released new guidelines for the comeback player of the year on the heels of, I think Flacco won it last year and Geno Smith won it the year before. And the AP basically said that the award is to go to someone who has missed significant time the year prior due to injury, illness, or some unforeseen circumstance. That's me paraphrasing, but that's the basic idea. So that would really make Russell Wilson ineligible from the award. Are Does that make sense to you? I just want your thoughts on should Russell Wilson be eligible for the comeback player of the year? Do you think this change by the AP is in the spirit of the award as you conceive of it? Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think I think, well, maybe I'm biased, but I think the most interesting cases of the award would be cases where not where someone was like injured and missed a lot of time the year before or something like that, but where they just sucked. They were like really bad for a while and they came back and were really good the next year. Like that's the and like maybe they have been good before. Obviously, if they're coming back in some respect, then probably they've come back from something. But, I don't know. I think that feels like the more interesting kind of case. And in that kind of, I mean, in that kind of case, you would think Russell Wilson would be eligible, right? If that were the criteria, namely just that he wasn't great, wasn't himself last year, and now he is again, or something like that. Then that would be. I mean, isn't that the more interesting kind of case? Like that's the kind where it's like something like mental had to be going on there. Like they reinvented themselves, or I don't know exactly what it was, but it was not just a physical recovery of a torn tendon, right? Which I guess is like that. Not that that's nothing. That's very difficult too. But it's I feel like the more interesting ones are where they're they're somehow personally put into a difficult situation, and it really is difficult to get out of, and then they get out of it and they have a great season again. Those are the cool cases to me. So at least they're cool right now because I think we're kind of in one with Russell Wilson. I don't know. What do you make of it?
I agree with you, and I am even more forceful about it. Like, I think these new guidelines are stupid. Like, I think that because I could understand this from a historical context when, like, if someone tore their ACL, if there were only like 25% of people that came back and played well, but like everyone that tears their ACL comes back and plays at a normal level as they were playing before now. Like, it's the exception rather than the rule that people have like injuries completely derail their careers. So it's like, yeah, Joe Burrow tears his ACL, then he comes back. Like, I expect him to be Joe Burrow again. This is not surprising to me. Why are we giving an award for that? That to me, it's like that has become the norm now. Russell Wilson is way more impressive to me. I thought his career was over. Like, I really thought he was done last year. Like, and Flacco last year, I thought he was deserving. Like, I never thought Flacco would make that run last year. Like, that, it's not only more interesting to me, like, to me, that's the right way. And I know that's a very, like, that's a personal preference, but, like, I feel like that is a better way to commemorate something exceptional. It is not exceptional. When Terrell Suggs tears his Achilles and comes back in the same year, it's just not that impressive anymore to do those kinds of things, unfortunately. I'm not saying it's not hard. It seems like it's really hard. But if everybody does it, then why are we giving out an award for it?
Yeah. Yeah. If it's a brute sort of physical, like reconnect these things and they just have to grow together. I mean, yeah, it's still, you have to, there's a lot that goes into that and there's a lot of, but I agree, right? If everyone's doing it or everyone that gets the injury is recovering that quickly and that well, then it's not, why give an award for that? I think you should give an award for the things that are
Unusual,
yeah,
exceptional. like,
right.
like
Yeah.
how many people have like Russell Wilson's 2 years in Denver and then come back and play like this? Like, or what Flacco did, or even Geno Smith is the like highest level. Like, that is the kind of guy that should be winning this award to me. I couldn't like honestly. I feel like, and maybe this is like I'm reading too much into it. I think they added this like specific kind of these criteria to the guidelines because they wanted DeMar Hamlin to have won last year,
Oh,
and like, man, I don't know how to make this argument without coming across as like very callous because the man almost lost his life. But just medically, DeMar Hamlin is not at any more risk than anybody else. Like, he had a freak timing injury that messed with his cardiac rhythm. He didn't have a predisposition for this that we know of. He doesn't have any more likelihood than anybody else. Like, it's just like if you get, someone gets struck by lightning or something. Like, it's something that was really unfortunate and extremely scary happened to him. But it's not like then coming, like, once you've recovered from the sequelae of having a cardiac arrest, which again, very, very extreme. I don't mean to sound callous, but like when everyone's like, oh, I don't know if he should play again. My thought was always like, well, why? Like, this could literally happen to anybody. Like, anyone gets hit in the chest like that at the exact right time, your heart could stop. Like, So
It's like if you get struck by lightning once and you come back, like there's no reason to think that you shouldn't play again because you got struck by lightning once.
right, exactly. That's a better way of saying what I was trying to say with the lightning analogy. Like it's like when something really crazy happens that has nothing to do with your own predisposition. It's one thing if like now your heart is never the same, but that's not how this works, you know, like so as much as what I think the entire situation surrounding Damar Hamlin was phenomenally handled by everyone. The paramedics, the coaches, the NFL, Damar Hamlin himself recovering. Like that whole thing is an amazing story. And it doesn't mean that it is anything unusual that Damar Hamlin's playing football right now, except for the fact that he survived a cardiac arrest. But once he's done that, like then he's at the same risk as everybody else again. Like, you know, I can understand how people would perceive this as being very callous, but I'm really trying to make just the point about like how much risk there is involved. Is it exceptional that someone overcame a cardiac arrest? Of course it is. But the coming back to play football once you have done that is not the exceptional part. The exceptional part is surviving.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we were on the same page here. I think Joe Flacco deserved it last year, and Geno Smith deserved it. And I mean, I don't know if Russell Wilson deserves it yet, but
I mean, Bryce Young might be coming for it.
Yeah, there you go. Bryce Young, if he comes, right? That would be fun too, right? It's almost like a mid-season comeback. Yeah, he was terrible at the start of the season too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah. But
Comeback Player of the Week award.
But then if they make this kind of the injury criterion or I don't even know who would win it this year, I guess. Who's come back from injury this year and played well?
I mean, well, Aaron Rodgers came back from injury and didn't play that well.
Kirk Cousins didn't either.
I guess Joe Burrow had the wrist injury.
Yeah, I guess he would win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we were worried about Burrow because in training camp it was like he's still not throwing every day and stuff like that. But like, I don't get that. I don't get it. Like when Adrian Peterson like tore his ACL and then came back and won MVP, it's like, yeah, but he's awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Like an awesome player played really well. Like, why are we acting surprised by this just because he tore his ACL? Like, he's already superhuman. Of course he was going to heal really well from that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really understand it. Like if well, I don't even want to speak this into existence, but if the quarterback that I like the most happened to get injured for a year and then came back and started playing like the best quarterback in the league, we wouldn't all be like, huh? What? Patrick Mahomes?
No, that's what you expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did want to. I had been thinking about this Russell Wilson resurgence under Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin, and I feel like the error that maybe the predictive error that maybe I made, and probably several people made when they looked at this in the offseason, was like, we know what Russell Wilson is. He's a known commodity at this point. He's not that good anymore. And I think that like he wasn't that good anymore, right? I mean, the numbers looked fairly good last year, but again, like you said, watching him play, you were never really scared of him. And I think the error there is like a good coach, and I do think Mike Tomlin is a good coach, not the only one by far, but like a good coach is going to not take a player as a given sort of. They're not just like a chess piece that it can do these things now, right? It's like, no, if I bring them into this environment, what can I get them to become? And I think that's how, spinning this nicely, we'll see how the rest of the season goes, but I think that is how like Mike Tomlin viewed this kind of situation. Like, if I get him into the right environment, give him another chance, we've seen he can be very good. How can we get him back to that kind of player? And I think that's what he's tried to do, and so far it seems like it's working. So
yeah, and I honestly like then it's so confusing because we like simultaneously then like blame Sean Payton for not being able to utilize them well, but yet Sean Payton's getting a lot of praise for utilizing Bo Nix very well.
Yeah.
And so is it that maybe Sean Payton can do very well with a certain skill set like a quarterback with a certain skill. Because and maybe I'm just wrong on this one, but like, I guess it depends on what people mean by saying Bo Nix is good. Like, if you're saying Bo Nix could be Derek Carr, like, yes, I am 100% on board. Like, a person who is a good starter for a long time and, not going to ever threaten to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like, I think that is definitely a potential trajectory for Bo Nix. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Derek Carr has had stretches where he's looked better than Bo Nix has looked now, so maybe I shouldn't be surprised by how things are going. Like 2016, Derek Carr was really good. But it's weird that it's like, well, we're saying that Sean Payton, clearly the fault was something schematic in Denver with Russell Wilson, but the plus is something schematic in Denver with Bo Nix. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's nothing like really cut and dry. Is that the phrase I want here? There's nothing obvious about any of these things, right? Like the coaches are not chess pieces, the players are not chess pieces. Like they are more like what's the proper analogy? Like chemicals, and you put them together and you see what you get out of it, right? But you put like acid and water, you get nothing that interesting. You get a more dilute acid, but you put an acid and a base together and you get some neutralization, I guess.
Not get water.
Yeah, but like that's not a perfect analogy, but I think that's what I'm going for, right? That like it's tempting to think of these things as little
Both
like
components
cogs
are
that can fit
important,
together.
and
Yeah, but they're not. They play off of each other in different ways. Um, that's what makes it interesting and fun and hard to predict and all that.
speaking of predictions, should we predict the Chiefs and Steelers
Yeah,
games?
yeah, yeah. We should. So we have Browns at Steelers, I think at 1 p.m. on Sunday, and then do you host the Chargers on Sunday
Host the
night?
Chargers on Sunday night, yeah.
That'll be fun. Well, let's go first to Browns and Steelers because that's the earlier game. I think I do think we win this. I feel very odd after how badly we played against them in Cleveland, but I think it's been a long time since they won in Pittsburgh too. I think we win it, but I don't know. Man, the tough part is it like a dominant win or is it a very close one? And I don't know. If the line can play, like the offensive line can play the way they played against the Bengals, I think that really will help us a lot. But they stunk against the Browns, so that's a big if. Um, I think they'll be motivated to really show up based on how they played 2 weeks ago. And so it feels really bold of me to predict like a dominant win, but I think I'm going to say like 27-17. Those are the numbers that I always go with anyway, right? I like those numbers. So 27-17.
It feels like a football score.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are going to win. So from when we made the end of year predictions, the Steelers have won exactly as many games as I thought. It's just that I would have switched the Bengals and Brown results. I thought you were going to lose to the Bengals and beat the Browns. So I'm liking, well, I shouldn't say I'm liking. I thought they would be 9-3, but I also thought they're going to go 2-3 the rest of the way. But this one I also had as a win. I think it's going to be tight, though, because I think the Browns' D-line is going to give the Steelers problems.
Mhm.
I don't think the Steelers are going to let the Browns get to 20 this time. I think it'll be... although Jerry Jeudy is really feeling himself, but Jameis is... I don't know if you watched the Broncos game, but
I saw
Jameis
some.
definitely gaveth and he tooketh away as well.
Yeah.
He
But he had
had
a
two pick
25
sixes.
almost 500 yards, right?
Yeah, he had almost 500 yards, but he had two pick sixes and another bad pick. Like when he was given, he was really given.
Yeah.
And
I don't. Yeah, that's a good point, though. I mean, they've been much more dangerous with him recently. So I don't know. Maybe 17 is a little low.
well, I was gonna even go lower. I think this is gonna be. I think this is gonna be a struggle. Tomlin's seen this team before. They're gonna be ready. They're going to make life really tough for Jameis. But the Browns are gonna stay in this game because the Steelers are gonna have trouble moving the ball. I think I'm gonna go 20-14. I think the Steelers win. I think it'll be an annoying game, but they'll pull it out. Maybe we'll get the cousin Sal bet this time of like the Steelers lose the first half and win the game.
Yeah, this makes me worried because you've been more accurate about Steelers games, I think, overall than I have. So I don't want this to be stressful, but I kind of agree that it probably will be. Um, what about Chiefs Chargers? Um, that's gonna be fun.
It's weird. I kind of wish we did this podcast earlier in the week because earlier in the week I was way more pessimistic about this game, and I think I've just like slowly through the week like talked myself into the Chiefs. So I'm probably way overconfident now. uh, I so an interesting stat from the Chargers quietly had a horrible offensive game against the Falcons. Lad McConkey accounted for 65% of their offense, which, for context, is a higher percentage than Jamar Chase got of the Bengals offense when he had the 250 whatever yard game, or I don't
Yeah,
remember how many,
yeah, against the Ravens. Yeah.
against the Ravens. McConkey had like, I think it was like 115 out of 106, 70 yards or something.
Wow.
It was not good. And J.K. Dobbins is on IR. McConkey is injured and questionable. I just don't know if the Chargers are going to be able to move the ball in this game. Now, if there's a team to move the ball against, we've got a second corner, but Quentin Johnson's been dropping a lot of passes for them recently. So, and every year since 2021, we have had one very good offensive performance against the Chargers. In 2021 and 2022, it was in LA, and 2023, it was in Kansas City. This year, our offensive performance in LA was terrible, partially because Rashee Rice got injured on like the third or fourth play. I think that the offense looks better. Team feels ready to pop with a good left tackle performance. Now, I don't know that we're going to get a great left tackle performance this week because it would be DJ Humphries' first game and he'd be on the team for like 10 days after tearing an ACL and not playing football since then. So, but I think it'll be better than Wanya Morris was last week. I think I'm going to go 30-17. I just feel good about this. I feel like the offense is ready. I think we're going to be able to run the ball. First of all, we're going to try to run the ball, and I think we're going to be able to run the ball. And I don't know. I think Hopkins, Kelsey, Worthy, it's just too much in this one, even though the Chargers defense has been really good. So this is probably overconfidence, but I feel like I don't think we've hit 30 yet this year. I think this is the week.
Yeah, that's so I was thinking, well, you make a good case that the Chargers offense is you're catching them at a good time, I think. But I do feel like their defense is going to give you all trouble. Aren't they are they still the number one defense in yards per game? I mean, they're way up
They're
there.
definitely in the top five at the least. I think they're in top five in DVOA also. This is a very good defense, but we did run the ball very effectively on them last time, and I expect after we didn't run the ball well against the Raiders, I think we're going to come out and really try to pound this one.
Yeah. Mm, I think it's going to be lower scoring. I'm thinking like um, 21-20 Chiefs. That's going to be
Oh
it.
God, that's
Yes.
not going to be fun. Yeah, I feel like you've been more accurate with the Chiefs games than me, so that's
Each of
not.
us is a strange. If that's right, that's it. I mean, we should go back and try to tabulate that. But that's interesting. If the person who's like sort of less knowledgeable about the fine
Dispassionate.
grained
It might be
details,
the dispassionate
yeah,
perspective.
yeah, I don't know. Somehow being closer to it makes it see it at a bad angle or something, to put it very figuratively. But yeah, yeah. I think the Chiefs will pull it out because they pull out every game basically, but it'll be close. It might be like a last second touchdown or something. Um, what else do I want to look around the league from this past week? And The main thing that I enjoyed was the Ravens losing. Um, but the Eagles, conversely, being presumably pretty good now. We have to play them in 2 weeks, I
Yeah,
think.
it's coming up.
So not looking forward to that. I guess.
I missed the Eagles Ravens game because I went to see Gladiator II with Sonu and Vladik in St.
Oh,
Louis.
oh,
Yeah.
fun. How was Gladiator 2?
So it was like, I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. If you want anything like Gladiator, like you'll be severely disappointed. If you want just like a fun movie to go watch, like yeah, it's not profound. It's not moving. It's just like an action movie in a period film. I will say Denzel's awesome. That was he. I thought he was really, really good. And the story is like okay. I feel like the plot moves way too fast at the end in ways that are not believable. Like people kind of change their opinions and get equity with other people in very short periods of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say it this way. I wouldn't recommend paying to see it. If it came on a streaming service, I would watch it.
Okay. Do you do you are you tempted to infer from this radical, like, so think of Gladiator 1 and compare it to Gladiator 2. Like, is that a symptom of a decaying culture or something like that? Like, are we on the decline because of how, like, this is what that became in the last, I don't know, what was it, 25 years or so? Like, is, should we be worried?
I don't think so. I think Gladiator 1 was just brilliance. And, you know, like, I think sometimes in order to make brilliance, you can't be trying to make brilliance, you know?
Mm,
You have to be just to have an idea and make it. And I think no, how are you going to live up to that movie? And I think I probably hold it in even higher esteem than most people. Like, I just think it might be one of my like top 5 movies. It's a great movie. So I don't know. I think part of the reason that I enjoyed the experience is because I never expected anything like the first one ever. Like I just
yeah,
wanted something fun, and I got that.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So not a sign of a decaying culture. Just
Because I feel like brilliance still happens today.
yeah,
Just and Ridley Scott's 25 years older. You know, it's a little harder to get things done.
yeah. I guess that's right. Yeah, everything's harder when you're 25 years old. I think. Um, yeah. Okay. We saw. Speaking of movies, we saw Wicked. Uh, um,
Oh, how was it?
which, like, I would recommend it. Yeah, I mean, if you like the musical, if you've seen the musical,
I like the musical. Yeah, it's good.
they basically just don't stray too far from that. You get some closer up shots because it's a film as opposed to, you're sitting in a theater, and there's a lot of CGI and whatnot. But yeah, it's good, but it's only the first half ish, so you don't
How did
have
they
the.
make that last so long?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it did seem like if you're gonna have an almost 3 hour movie, you should be able to get more done. But
And they do it in the play.
yeah, it's like a 3 hour
Yeah, it's 3 hours and they finish the whole thing.
to do it all. Yeah, I guess they just embellished the time between the songs more, but I think the songs come in basically the same order, and the same things are happening. So I think it was smart not to try to reinvent something that didn't need it. I also heard that Red One was terrible. Didn't see that. I have no desire to see that, but also not surprised that it's terrible.
Yeah, I could envision that being the case.
Well, there's our movie takes on the week.
A movie takes. Um,
What else?
I think we should talk about how dumb the Chicago Detroit ending was. I don't know. Did you see that game?
I did not actually.
So
Although people were talking about it.
Detroit essentially controlled this game throughout, and then Chicago made I think it was 16-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
And Chicago made a furious comeback toward the end, and then we're driving down 3 and had a timeout left, and I I don't know why. So like, where are they on the field? They're somewhere around the 40-yard line. It's like right on the fringes of field goal range to make the game tying field goal, and they have a running clock. And Matt Eberflus refuses to take his timeout. He wants to set it up for the game winning field goal if they need a play in bounds. But this whole sequence, I believe, starts with around 30 to 40 seconds left. But Caleb Williams is doing a lot of checking at the line, trying to change things up. They don't end up getting the snap off until like I need to check, but I think it's like under 10 seconds. It's something
Wow.
absolutely criminal. And it's like with Matt Eberflus, I'm like, I understand the basic premise of like, okay, when we've got the ball with like 40 seconds left in a running clock, let's go and save that timeout. That is reasonable to me. But then, yeah, it went from 36 seconds to 6 seconds. They lost 30 seconds. It was after a sack. Caleb Williams got sacked on 2nd and 20. Well, and that's the other problem. Oh, God, this is even worse than I remember. So they started with 2nd and 10 at the Detroit 25 with 43 seconds left. Can you imagine being in that position and not get a field goal off? Like 2nd and 10 at the Detroit 25 and with 43 seconds left, and they get an illegal use of hands penalty, moves them back 10 yards. So now it's 2nd and 20 at the Detroit 35, and Caleb Williams takes a sack, which is just the last thing you can do, right? So first of all, taking the sack. Then they run 30 seconds off the clock, don't use their timeout, and try to run a play with 6 seconds left. Williams throws an incomplete bomb, and the clock's run out. And the thing first of all, to me, when you're running a 2-minute drill and you're under 45 seconds and you get sacked, you call the timeout immediately. Like, I don't care what's going on, I call a timeout. But let's say you're really in that situation where you're like, no, I need to save this timeout. Once your quarterback has taken like 10 seconds and doesn't look close to getting the snap off, just call the timeout then. Like, do something. Save yourself. Like, I don't know. It's one of those situations where like, I understand why he was fired after this game. Like, it's just the optics of this one are really, really hard.
Yeah.
Which is how much the team's been losing anyway. But then this was the cherry on top.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of well, this doesn't even like help. Maybe it explains like why this could happen, right? But like, it's it's very like we're all sort of accustomed to like watching this happen on TV or whatever. And we can like, we have our angles and we know, the we see the clock at the bottom. You're used to like everything and where to look and figure out the time and like how to use that to make your judgments about whether to call timeout or not. And they were in Detroit in this case, right? So
Yeah.
probably, he has to figure out where the clock is, and he has to figure out where the play clock is, and these things. So like it's just a new environment, and so I feel like that throws off a lot of your rhythms about like deciding when to call timeout and whatnot. And this is just the kind of thing. The more you play around the league, the more you're used to this kind of thing. So, and that's not justifying it, but it's just saying like it's probably pretty hard when you're there in the moment, trying to figure out these things and keep your head on straight while things are not where you're used to them being, right? Like the play clock is not where you're used to it being.
Yeah. And the only thing that's hard for me to relate to is I feel like in chaos, inaction is even more anxiety provoking. Like I feel like the thing I would do out of inexperience was to do something that I shouldn't do rather than just not do anything at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would do too, probably.
Like call a timeout when you shouldn't call one rather than just wait and wait and wait.
Challenge a play that he will never win. Yeah.
I think we should also address the Jets Seahawks game
You
when
don't know anything about that one. What happened in that one?
well, Aaron Rodgers threw 2 touchdown passes in the first quarter and they were up 14-0, and I thought the game was over. Then the Seahawks kind of woke up a little bit. They scored a touchdown, and then the Jets get a kick return touchdown. So it's still like it's 21-7 Jets. Then the Jets are driving, and Aaron Rodgers misses a wide open Garrett Wilson in the end zone. And on the next play, he doesn't see a dropping defensive lineman and throws a 92-yard pick six to Leonard Williams. And the entire game unraveled from that. The Jets never scored again, and the Seahawks won 26-21. It was after the first quarter, I was just like, wow, the Jets are just gonna walk away with this one. Like, this is different from all year. And then it just became just like all year.
Just yeah, this is. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is following the Ben Roethlisberger late career trajectory. It's just like that. You're just not this. You're still okay, right? You can still like, you know enough and you played enough to, you know, do some things well, but you're not close to the quarterback you were
Yeah.
in your prime.
And you don't realize that enough at times,
Yeah,
unfortunately. Like,
yeah,
if you were the quarterback you were and you had the mindset of someone with that level of ability, it might be okay at times.
yeah.
But when you have the mindset of someone who's like a Super Bowl winner, MVP, like, it's kind of tough.
I honestly though, even I feel like Ben in his last year was better than Aaron has been this year. I think.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know that it's that
Yeah,
close, honestly.
yeah. He had some good games there. He brought us back from some big depth. I mean, we didn't seal the deal a bunch of the time, but he still had it. He still had it, kind of, at least more than Aaron does.
And he wasn't being stupid. He just didn't have the arm he used to have.
Yeah, and
Like,
the legs. He did not have the
no,
legs.
no, no. Yeah, that's true. Well, neither does Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers, it doesn't. I don't really know. There are just times when you're like, "What are you doing?" Like, it's not like Ben. His degree of difficulty was cranked up because everyone was pressing the line of scrimmage. They were trying to stop everything short. He have Matt Canada as an offensive coordinator. I'm sure that didn't help.
Yeah,
Lots of
yeah,
levels.
yeah. That's like the worst part there. Yeah. The I did also want to just like give Anthony Richardson some more props. I think yeah,
Yeah.
it brought him back at the end again. Um, yeah, awesome to see. He's like maybe he can be the comeback player of the year. That would be
Oh
great.
yeah.
Um,
He did
but
get hurt last year, didn't
yeah,
he?
there we go. There we go. Maybe it could be him. We just need a couple more games like this. Um, I would prefer him over Joe Burrow.
I figure
Um,
it's got to be Burrows to lose. Unfortunately, he's statistically playing very well.
yeah. But I was thinking about this because we had talked about Anthony Richardson saying he was tired a couple like before he got benched earlier in the year, and Najee Harris in this one he had to go out of the game in the first quarter for a bit, and then they asked him after the game like why what was that about? His answer was uh, that Pat Frymuth's girlfriend made a really good Thanksgiving dinner, and he didn't realize how hard it was hitting him until the first quarter of the game on Sunday. Just like so, I appreciated the honesty there, right? Like that's like I don't know, that's
It's
uh,
also extremely relatable, right? Like, when is that not? I mean, everyone has had an experience like that in their lives.
holy cow, so I am feeling it. Yeah, but he's always just so likable. I hope we somehow sign him to an extension or something, but looks like he's probably going to be gone. Anyway,
Well, the last thing I will say is we're wrapping this up right as Lions Packers is about to
yeah,
start. I'm just going to put up my plug. Please Packers win this game because I want the Lions to be nice and motivated when they play the Bills next weekend. So I would love the Lions coming off a loss to play Buffalo. That
if
is my
the
hope.
the Lions would still have something to play for if they win, right? It's not like they wrap anything up with a
Right,
win.
because the Eagles still only have 2 losses. But
Yeah,
I need the added motivation because I feel like I feel like the Bills are going to win the rest of their games besides the Lions game. So it's the one hope that the Chiefs have to build some space because the Bills
yeah.
play the Rams this week. I don't think that's happening. And then it's like Jets, Dolphins, Jets or something stupid. Like,
I guess we
or
need
no, Jets, Patriots, Jets, I think. Even worse.
that's not any better. Yeah. Um, if we have any hope of the one seed, we also need the Bills to lose. So I guess I should also be in this boat train for the Packers tonight to motivate the Lions next week. But I don't know. The Lions really, I thought, dominated them when they played earlier this year. So we'll see.
But apparently and not that I follow the Lions defense, but people were talking about the Lions defense. Maybe their injury issues have reached a potential breaking point. So maybe Jordan Love can feast. Let's see.
Yeah.
Knock
Yeah.
on wood.
Good. Well, we're almost out of time. Anything else to wrap up this one?
No, just that I will tonight try to at least post a clip about Justin Fields' zone reads, and then tomorrow morning will probably be the full Steelers Bengals film review.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Um, yeah, I will be curious to know your take on whether that was genuinely pass interference or hand to the face or something like that, or whether it was fine. Because my info was like very biased because it's all from Steelers fans, but it, it could have been, I don't know, it could have been fine. Like Pickens was already stumbling, right, and he just put his hands there or something. I don't know, but I
I
certainly would have.
will, as usual, I will parse the rule book to use exact verbiage, and so we'll get deep into it. But my inclination to this point is that it was illegal use of hands is the penalty I'm going with. But
Okay,
we'll get into the details on the film review.
sounds good. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening and for your engagement. And we'll see how it goes next week, and we'll be back to talk about it.
All right. Thanks for all of you that remember we're on social media at STCF715, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Those of you that are commenting and watching are particularly appreciated. And shout out to Cash Out Season.
This is for you.
Until next time.
Yeah.